disintegrating. The son needs money. The daughter is determined to lose her virginity before college, which is just a few months away. And it's all wrapped up in a beautiful house lent by one of those impossibly cool women who is not really your friend. Betrayals will be revealed, life-altering decisions made, and in the end, you will wish that you could continue on the journeys with the Post family and friends. Any Bostrom book lists of the book? Straub masters a constantly changing flow of perspectives, as readers wonder who will forgive and be forgiven in the sun-soaked remote paradise. Spongy and dear, sharply observed and funny, Straub's domestic drama goes abroad is a delightful study of the complexities of family and love and the many distractions from both. And with that, Emma Straub.
It's really nice to see so many people from so many different parts of my life and in different directions. I feel like I have to do a little choreography. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. It's so nice to be back at Politics Prose. This is the greatest, obviously. And I'm thrilled to be here. I really love that the review that you read, because the woman uses the word spongy. I don't really know what that means. I mean, spongy. I don't really know what it means, I guess. But I like it. It sounds like a compliment. I think it's a compliment. If it's not a compliment, please don't correct me, because I've been going around calling myself spongy all the time. So I'm going to read a little bit from pretty early on. The Post family has arrived in Mallorca. I don't speak any Spanish, and so if you do, I'm sorry for what I'm about to do. It's not pretty, and I'm sorry. I don't think you need to know anything. Jim and Franny are the parents. Sylvia is their 18-year-old daughter, who's with them, and their son is yet to arrive. So I'll read two short sections. The house was in the foothills of the Tramuntana Mountains. See already. Can't say it. On the far side of the town of Puigpunyent. Again, terrible. On the winding road that would eventually lead to Valdemasa. No one could pronounce Puigpunyent. The car rental agent said something like Puigpunyent or something of the sort, unrepeatable with an American tongue. And so when Sylvia insisted on calling it Pigpen, Jim and Franny couldn't correct her, and Pigpen it was. Mallorcan Spanish wasn't the same as proper Spanish, which wasn't the same as Catalan. Franny's plan was to ignore the differences and just plow ahead. It was how she usually got along in foreign countries. Unless you were in France, most people were delighted to hear you try and fail to form the right words. Franny and Sylvia stared out opposite windows, Franny in the front and Sylvia in the back, while Jim drove. It was only 25 minutes from the airport, according to Gemma. This is who is renting them the house. But that seemed to be true only if you knew where you were going. Gemma was one of Franny's least favorite humans on the planet for a number of reasons. Number one, she was Charles's second closest female friend. Number two, she was tall and thin and blonde, 3 automatic strikes. 3, she'd been shipped off to boarding school outside Paris and spoke perfect French, which Franny found profoundly show-offy, like doing a triple axel at the Rockefeller Center skating rink. Heading up the mountain, Jim took several wrong turns on roads that looked too narrow to be two-way streets and not just someone's well-paved driveway, but no one particularly minded because it gave them a better introduction to the island. Mallorca was a layer cake. The gnarled olive trees and spiky palms, the green-gray mountains, the chalky stone walls along either side of the road, the cloudless pale blue sky overhead. Though the day was hot, the mugginess of New York City was gone, replaced by unfiltered sunshine and a breeze that promised you'd never be too warm for long. Mallorca was summer done right, hot enough to swim but not so warm that your clothing stuck to your back. Franny laughed when they pulled into the gravel drive, so drastically had Gemma undersold her house. Another reason to despise her, modesty. In the distance, there were proper mountains with ancient trees ringing the slopes like Christmas ornaments, and the house itself looked like an actual present. 2 stories tall and twice as wide as their limestone at home, it was a sturdy-looking stone building painted a light pink. It glowed in the mid-morning sunlight, the black shutters on the open windows, eyelashes on a beautiful face. A good third of the house's front was covered with rich green vines which crept across from edge to edge, threatening to climb into the windows and consume the house entirely. Tall, narrow pine trees lined the edge of the property, their tippy tops poking at the wide and empty sky. It was a child's drawing of a house, a large square with an angled roof on top, colored in with some ancient terracotta crayon that made the whole thing radiate. Franny clapped. The back of the house was even better. The swimming pool, which had looked merely serviceable in the single backyard photograph, was in fact divine, a wide blue rectangle tucked into a hillside. A cluster of wooden chaise lounges sat at one end, as if the posts had walked in on a conversation already in progress. Sylvia hurried behind her mother, holding on to the sides of her tunic like a horse's reins. From the lip of the pool, they could see other houses tucked into the side of the mountain, as small and perfectly shaped as Monopoly pieces, their gleaming faces poking out from a blanket of shifting green trees and craggy rocks. The ocean was somewhere on the other side of the mountains, another 10 minutes west, and Sylvia huffed in the fresh air, sniffing for salt particles. There was probably a university in Mallorca, at the very least a swimming and tennis academy. Maybe she could just stay and let her parents go home alone and do whatever had to be done. If she was on the other side of the world, what difference would it make? For the first time in her life, Sylvia envied her brother's distance. It was harder to mourn something you weren't used to seeing on a daily basis. All right, now I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to Sylvia. So they've, jet lag. Sylvia has taken a nap. That's all you need to know. Sylvia had passed out immediately in the smallest bedroom, which looked like it had been built for a nun. A bed hardly wider than her slim teenaged body, white walls, white sheets, painted white floor. The only thing un-nun-like about the room was a painting of a naked woman in repose. It looked like one of Charles's, that's her mother's best friend who's joining them, and she was used to those. He loved to paint those tender triangles of pubic hair, often of her mother in her youth. It was what it was. Other people had the luxury of never seeing their mother naked, but not Sylvia. She stretched lazily, her pointed toes hanging over the end of the bed. The house smelled weird like wet rocks and frogs, and it took Sylvia several minutes to remember where she was. Here comes some more Spanish. Me llamo Sylvia Post, she said. Donde está el baño? That's not bad, right? That was okay? Okay, thank you. Sylvia rolled onto her side and pulled her knees up to her chest. The single window in the room was open and a nice breeze came in. Sylvia had few thoughts about Spain. It wasn't like France, which made her think of baguettes and bicycles, or Italy, which made her think of gondolas and pizza. Picasso was Spanish but looked French and sounded Italian. There was the one Woody Allen movie that took place in Spain, but Sylvia hadn't seen it. Matadors? That was Spain, wasn't it? She might as well have woken up in a sunny bedroom somewhere on the island of Peoria. The bathroom was down the hall, and it looked like it hadn't been renovated since 1973. The tiles on the wall above the bathtub and behind the sink were the color of split pea soup, a food group that Sylvia planned to happily avoid for the rest of her life. There was no proper shower, just a handheld nozzle on a long silver neck that began at the knobs. Sylvia turned the hot one and waited for a minute, running the water over her hand to feel when it got warm. She waited for a few minutes, and when the warmth didn't arrive, she turned the other knob, stripped off her clothes, and climbed in. She had to stoop in order to get the nozzle to reach her head and was able to really dampen only one body part at a time. There was a bar of soap in the dish, but Sylvia couldn't quite work out how to wash her body with one hand and douse herself with freezing cold water with the other. All the towels in the bathroom seemed to have been made for little people, Thumbelina-sized people. People even shorter than her mother. Sylvia tried to wrap her upper and lower parts with two of the glorified washcloths. She combed her hair with her fingers and looked at herself in the mirror. Sylvia knew that she wasn't bad-looking, she wasn't deformed, but she also knew that there was a vast chasm between her and the girls at her school who were beautiful. Her face was a little bit long, and her hair hung limply to her shoulders, neither blonde nor brown, somewhere in the middle. That was Sylvia's whole problem. She was the middle. Sylvia couldn't imagine how she would explain herself to someone else, to a stranger. She was average, with blue eyes that weren't particularly large or shapely. Nothing anyone could write a poem about. Sylvia thought about that a lot. So many of the world's best poems were written before their authors were really adults. Keats, Rimbaud, Plath. And yet they had packed so much beauty and agony into their lives, enough to sustain their memory for centuries. Sylvia stuck out her tongue and carefully opened the bathroom door with the hand holding the towel around her waist. Pardon! There was a boy attached to the voice. Sylvia shut her eyes, hoping that she was hallucinating, but when she opened them again, he was still there. Maybe boy wasn't the right word. There was a young man standing in front of her, maybe her brother Bobby's age, maybe younger, but definitely older than she was. Oh my God, Sylvia said. She didn't want to notice that the complete stranger who was staring at her while she was wearing very tiny towels was handsome, with dark, wavy hair like someone on the cover of a romance novel, but she couldn't help it. "Oh my God," she said again, and hurried around him, taking the smallest steps possible so that her legs were never more than 2 inches apart. When she was safely on the other side of her bedroom door, Sylvia let the towels drop to the floor so that she could use both of her hands to cover her face and scream without making any noise at all. I'll leave it there. Thanks. So I'm happy to either babble a little bit or a lot of a bit, or answer questions if anybody has questions. I can do both. I'm a good babbler. Babble. Okay. You got it. So I started writing this book a long time ago, in about 2005, right before I started my MFA program with my friend Nate Brown, who's sitting to my left. I was writing a novel that took place at Jim and Franny's anniversary party, and there were a lot of flashbacks. It was like all flashbacks, which like tells you exactly how good it was. Just not very. And I was playing with the book for a really long time, sort of on and off, and I just couldn't figure out how to get it to work. So I pillaged a few pieces of it. 3 stories that were in my short story collection were pieces from that novel. And then I wrote another book, Laura Lamont's Life in Pictures, and then when I was done with that, which was this, big, long book about the Hollywood studio system that covered 50 years, I was like, okay, it's time for me to go back to my friends, the Posts, and I decided to give myself the opposite challenge. So instead of writing a book that took place over a really long span of time, I gave them 2 weeks, and it just so happened that I was also pregnant, which I recommend to anyone who's trying to finish a novel, because it really gives you a very serious deadline. And so I finished one draft, and then I was like, okay, I hadn't been to Mallorca, and I was like, okay, I should probably get to Mallorca if this book is going to take place there, so I can see if I'm even half right about anything, because there were all these places that were like, insert good scene with Spanish food here. There were a lot of notes like that in the first draft, because I'd never been to Spain, and I didn't really know. Tapas? What's tapas? So there were a lot of things like that in the first draft, and my husband and I went to Mallorca for a couple of weeks, and I took lots and lots and lots and lots of notes, and then I came home, wrote sort of the second draft, handed it in, and then had a baby, which worked out very well. I have to say, it sounds crazy, but it really was, for me, it really was a good structure to my life, where I was like, this has to be done by then. And I didn't even know how right I was, that like it really had to be done by then. Babies, turns out they take up a lot of your time. Let's see, what else can I babble about? Does anyone have any questions now? Or I can babble about something else? Yeah.
Are you going to go on tour with the Magnetic Fields again?
Well, they're not touring right now at the moment. Although on Saturday night, Stephen Merritt from the Magnetic Fields is doing an event at BAM for None Such's like 20th anniversary or something like that. And I'm doing an event in Rhinebeck, New York, which is right where he lives now. So we're swapping places on Saturday night. We'll see. The baby has been doing some of my book tour with me, which is okay. So maybe, I don't know. We'll see. In New York City, yes, I will do whatever the Magnetic Fields want forever. But elsewhere, we'll see.
Emma, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
So I'm lucky enough to be Emma's friend on Instagram and Facebook, and I think Twitter too.
Yeah. I
And
get around.
your
your marketing build-up to the release of this book has been many months in the works, and it's been kind of brilliant. And so, is your next book actually going to be a how-to? And how does it correlate to the preparation for having a child, perhaps?
Wait, does my Instagram correlate to having a child? Is that the second part of that question? I mean, Instagram makes it really easy to put cute pictures of my baby on the internet. That part is true. And as for the previous part, I do think I could teach a class on how to do that sort of thing. And I have a number of friends who are agents or editors, and publicists in New York, and they tell me that they do actually like to use me as an example, which to me just means that I do it like 75% too much, because that's what publicists want you to do, is like too much always. But yeah, I don't know. I really like that stuff. I think it's goofy and silly, and I don't take it very seriously, which means that it's, it doesn't take up a lot of my brain power. I have one friend, I won't name her, but I have one friend who has very serious OCD, and she takes it very seriously. And so I think that she probably has lists of things that she's supposed to mention on like each different social media platform and things like that, like charts in her house. I just, it's just off the dome always. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, in terms of the marketing and stuff for the book, the people at Riverhead are actually wonderful geniuses, and they have done such a beautiful job with this book. They're giving it away. They love to just give books away, basically. That's their secret. But this one thing that I'm really excited about that they're doing is that they're giving books away on the Hampton Jitney, which is like the bus to the Hamptons, which is like perfect. You get like rich people and a captive audience. Like, it's great. So yeah, I could learn something from them too. Yeah, hi. Yeah.
I first read about this book in People magazine.
Yeah.
And I was just curious, how does that feel as an author? Like, is it kind of embarrassing to be in People magazine?
No.
As a reader, when I told people, I first read about it in People magazine, it was a little embarrassing.
No. Okay. First of all, I love People magazine. And second of all, I was extra excited about that particular issue because it was the one with pictures of Drew Barrymore's new baby. And so the review of my book, it was this gigantic, beautiful, like one of the nicest reviews I have ever gotten and will ever get in my life. It was so nice. And then you turn the page and it's Drew Barrymore's baby, which to me means that Drew Barrymore herself, she has to have like 16 issues of this magazine sitting around her house, right? And eventually she's going to see it. She's nursing a new baby. She's got time where she's just like, I can't use my brain for anything. That book looks good, right? So yeah, no, I was just so thrilled. I mean, there aren't that many standalone book reviews these days, and so I mean, anytime you can get the attention of readers anywhere is a good thing for sure. And People magazine is great. I mean, my mother-in-law said she was at her dentist's office, and she was sitting in the waiting room, whatever, and there was a People magazine, and she opened it to the page, and she went up to the receptionist and she said, "This is my daughter-in-law." And the woman, this is like the greatest thing that ever happened to me, the woman actually said, "I just ordered that book," which is like, and to me that's People magazine. That's what People magazine could do. Yeah, hi.
So I recently graduated a part-time MA program, and I live in DC.
Great.
So this whole book, MFA versus NYC,
Yeah.
is completely intriguing.
Yes.
I seem to be totally left out of it. And as you are an MFA and you live in New York City,
Yeah, double whammy.
can you speak to that? What is
Yeah.
kind of both sides of this
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah. I sort of totally ignored that book that came out, but my dad, who is a writer in NYC who does not have an MFA, was obsessed with it. And he would just call me every day after reading each essay, be like, do you know what Chad Harbach says about it? Do you know what, like quoting every single one. Here's what I think. Both, organisms are designed to introduce you to good people and MFAs, I think the best thing about an MFA is that you get time to write and you get to meet like-minded people. The NYC part of the debate, I think, is that you get to go to parties and meet people, but you probably don't have time to write because you have to work like 16 jobs because it's so expensive. I think that if you can swing either one of those, great. Are they necessary? No. Going back to the internet, this is what the internet does nowadays. You can meet everyone you need to know on the internet. You really, really can. Yeah. And if you do an MA instead of an MFA, does that matter to anybody? No. Yeah. That's great. Like it's, I think whatever makes you happy and what gives you time to work and meet nice people, that's what you should do. And the biggest thing about the MFA, I think, is that anyone should only ever go someplace that is as close to free as possible. That's because, people go to Columbia, which Columbia's great. I have a lot of friends who went through that program, but it can be $50,000 a year. And that's crazy. Imagine you're a poet and you spend $100,000 on a graduate degree. In what universe does that make sense? No universe. Unless you want to. Unless you're James Franco. If you are a famous actor who also wants to study poetry or something, then great. Spend all your money. But if you're a normal human being, it's better not to be in debt, I think. That's my official. Yeah, I know.
I want to ask about how your research was with this book versus Laura Lamont.
Yeah. Oh my God. So much easier. So much easier. Yeah. No, for Laura Lamont, I spent a lot of time in libraries, which is nice. Good libraries, beautiful libraries. But for this book, I spent a lot of time at restaurants and small museums in Mallorca. Which is if I had to choose, I would choose the one with tiny, delicious things on sticks. Yeah. I'm sort of joking, but I'm also really not joking because this book was, maybe it was partially the fact that I was pregnant or I don't know. And I knew I had to get it done, but it was so easy. The actual writing of this book. Not that I didn't my outline changed and lots of things. I still spent a lot of time working on it, obviously, on my own and with my editor, but the actual day-to-day writing of the sentences was so easy just because it was contemporary and I knew these characters really well. And they, the Post family lives on 75th Street. My parents live on 85th Street, which you understand is totally different. But I didn't have to do that much research. Yes, Sarah. Yes. So the house that we didn't quite get to the house in the section I read, you saw the outside of it. Yeah. So the house is basically a shrunken down version of this hotel that my husband and I stayed at. So Mallorca is famous for the summertime, when you can see Rafa Nadal walking around. Maybe, I don't know. I never saw Rafa Nadal, but I hoped to every single day that I was there. But we went in the wintertime, which was the off season. It was still beautiful. The weather was perfect. You could wear a light cardigan and walk around all day and never be too hot, never be too cold. And all the hotels were dirt cheap. it was dirt cheap because it was the off season and nobody was there. So we stayed at this beautiful hotel and sat by the empty pool. We were the only people there. Like a week in, like some Germans showed up and we're like, come on, this is our place. But yeah, I mean, it was this beautiful pink little hotel that I shrunk down into a pink little house. Yeah, I took a lot of pictures. It was nice. Also, the bathroom had heated floors. Incredible. I actually thanked the heated floors in my acknowledgments.
How is your writing time going to change now that you have a baby?
Oh, I don't know. If you find some for me, tell me. Yeah, I mean this. So I had the baby in August, and this spring I was in Nashville, Tennessee, where I was teaching, and so sort of all of my childcare hours, which were very few and far between, went to doing stuff for my class. So I really haven't written anything longer than 1,000 words. But yeah, my hope is that starting in July, once I'm done sort of doing most of my book events, that I can get back to work. I don't know. We'll see. I look forward to trying. Yeah, it's funny that because I was, I don't know, sort of superstitious or like a little bit paranoid before Laura Lamont came out that it would be hard to get back to work. I got about 50 pages of this written before that came out so that I could just feel like I was already in motion on something, and I wasn't able to do that this time around, so I'm going to be totally starting from scratch, which feels like a little bit scary but also exciting and fun. I don't know. I've been working on a short story which I haven't done in a while, which was really fun. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Have you been reading anything great?
I have been reading all of Meg Wolitzer's back catalog. I don't know if any of you have read The Interestings. It's the greatest book in the world. It came out last year. It's out in paperback now, and if I call it a summer camp novel, it'll give you the wrong impression. But it is a book that starts at a summer camp in the late 1960s, right? Yeah. And it follows these characters for the rest of their lives, basically. And it's so beautiful and so funny and so moving. And I'd already read a number of her earlier books, but there were a couple that I hadn't read, so I had to go back and read all those. So I've been reading that. I just started a galley of the new Lev Grossman book, The Magician's Land, it's called. Not a great title, really. The Magician King was the last one, which was like, I don't know. But I just started that on the train down, and it's really good. Yeah. Oh, my friend Eden Lepucky has a book that's coming out in a couple of weeks called California, and the coolest thing in the world just happened. So her book, I don't know if you guys have been following this, like, Amazon is the devil thing, but they have stopped sort of shipping books published by Hachette, and my friend Eden's book is published by Little Brown, which is part of Hachette, and so her book is not available for pre-order, and it's with a debut book especially, it's really, the pre-order is really important, just because it sort of tells the publisher how excited people are, and it just helps the train get on the tracks. And Sherman Alexie went on the Colbert Report yesterday, or the day before, no, yesterday, and to talk about this Amazon thing, and he pulled out a copy of Eden's book, and Stephen Colbert said, you can't order this book on Amazon, but you can order it from Powell's, which is an independent bookstore in Portland, Oregon. Do it. Order it. We're better than Amazon. And it's #1 on the Powell's website now, and it makes me so happy. So buy that. Buy it here. Don't buy it on Amazon. It's called California by Eden Lepucky, which is a hard word to spell, but it's phonetic, mostly. Yeah. Any other questions?
I was wondering how you were holding up on this tour. Like an absolute explosion.
it's like day 4. I'm okay. Yeah. Yeah, I have a long way to go. I don't know. We'll see. So far, so good. So far, so good. This is the longest that I've been away from the baby, and I'm going back immediately after this. So I don't know. I'm having fun. I'll tell you later. Yeah, I'll tell you. So yeah, I'll get home at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and then he's been waking up at like 5:30. So tomorrow morning, I would say it's terrible. But by tomorrow afternoon, I'll be like, oh, that's okay. Maybe I'll take a nap. Yeah. So far, so good.
Emma, there was something you said
Uh-oh.
about coming to the end of your deadline before having the baby,
Yeah.
where you're pulling together your second draft. You filled in the gaps via the trip to Mallorca.
Mm-hmm.
And you banged it out, and it sounded as though you had a sort of regimented, succinct way of knowing what you had to do, and you did it.
Yep.
Is that something that you get out of an MFA program? Because as I understand it, with an MFA, you come out of it saying, oh, okay, you want that scene? I'll give it to you in 300 words or 3,000.
I don't think so. Do you think so? Do you think so? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. No, I don't think so. I mean, if anything, I mean, maybe other MFA programs are different, but I mean, certainly the MFA program that I went to was very much geared toward the short story and not so much toward the novel. It's hard to teach novel writing because they're so long and you can't really workshop them. So it's that you definitely don't learn in an MFA program. Yeah, I don't know if MFAs teach you how to do something in 300 words or 3,000 words. I don't know what MFAs teach you. Now we're going back to this conundrum, MFA versus NYC. Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that, what I have learned so far is that you really have to treat each book like its own project, and that things that you learn for one aren't necessarily applicable to the next. At least that's true for me so far. This is just my second one, so maybe I'm totally crazy, and in 15 years, if you ask me that question, I'll be like, yes, exactly. I'm extremely efficient, but right now I'm trying to be efficient. I don't know if it's working yet.
I actually had a question.
Yeah.
So you were pregnant when we were writing this.
Yeah.
And with Charles and Lawrence wanting to adopt a baby, and kind of Charles hesitant about getting a baby, I was wondering if that was kind of your way of releasing some tension, some stress.
It wasn't, but I do, like, the minute that I had my baby, my dad said to me, like, oh, this is going to completely change what you write about. And I said, you're right. And I think as I was writing, there's a lot. So there are 2 characters in the book who are trying to adopt a baby. And then, obviously there are these it's parents and their 2 children. So I was thinking a lot about families and what it means to be a family, and, what it means to be in a marriage, and what it means to have a long, serious friendship, and thinking about all of these really important sort of vital relationships. And I was thinking a lot, even though there were, parents and children in Laura Lamont, I definitely was thinking about it more in this one. And, I sort of like, I think that my next book is going to have a childbirth scene, just because that's crazy. That's crazy that happens. And people need to know. They don't. They know. I guess people know. But yeah. So that's my only plan for my next project writing. Definitely childbirth scene. I would tell you that I'm kidding, but I'm really not. If nobody has any other questions, we can talk about childbirth later if you want. Thank you guys so much for coming.